Welcome. My name is Bret. This is my show. This is another Thursday, live every Thursday. If you are here live, then you know that already. If you watch this later, come back live. We take questions. I have guests. We talk about Docker, containers, Kubernetes, DevOps, all things containers. Basically, if it can run in a container, we're probably talking about it. And I'm excited today because we have a jam-packed show. First time in a long time. We got 3 guests. We got technically 2 hosts and 2 guests. Actually, that's the first time I've ever done that. So let's get to it. But real quick, I've got to tell you about my little course going on right now. I'm live in session this week and next week teaching 15 people. This is the beta group that's testing out my new content. This is a taught live only. You get homework, assignment labs. We have discussions. I provide commentary as usual. And it is sold out, obviously, because we're in class right now. But if you're interested, I will give you the link. This is basically the equivalent of small group consulting. is what this is, on deploying applications with Argo CD in a GitOps style to Kubernetes, while also adding in GitHub actions for using the Docker build actions, CVE scans, smoke testing on Kubernetes, little mini clusters that set up and tear down in seconds. You name it. We're going through all of it this week and next, and then I will be scheduling the next one. So get on the wait list. You just have to scroll down. You don't have to buy anything yet. You can scroll down, get on the wait list so you'll know about future dates. I'm very excited about this. And it's also the first time that my wife is in the class with me, and she's facilitating. So Beth is there. We have fun. We play music. It's like a little 90-minute break in your workday. You come hang out with us and learn something. We have a little fun, and then you have to go back to the day job. So check it out. Anyway, let's move on to the show. I'm excited to bring everyone in. This is like the group huddle. We're going to go around the room. Let's see. I can't point at you with my mouse, and I was too lazy to put names on. So below me, Michael Irwin from Docker, Senior Manager of DevRel. Over next to him, you might have seen recently on the show, my new co-host, Matt Williams. And then right to my left, that would be my left, Justin Cormack of Docker, the CTO of Docker. Welcome to the show. Yep. So we're not going to take time today to talk about all your backgrounds, but if you didn't know, Justin's been at Docker forever. Michael was a Docker captain. He is still a Docker captain. Traditionally, in the Docker captain program, if you didn't know, when you go work for Docker, you can no longer be a captain. So he surrenders his hat. It's like the hat that's the hat that's right
there. There it is.
He surrenders the hat, becomes an employee, and he has worked his way up the ranks. He's now in charge of stuff at DevRel. So congrats, by the way. I didn't think I mentioned that.
Yeah, and actually just hit a year yesterday.
I'm disappointed.
So it's gone quickly.
You're disappointed, Matt? Already?
I'm disappointed that we're not going to talk about histories because I'd really love to know more about large-scale LED ads in Piccadilly Circus. But
yes, you've been finding out about my far back history.
LinkedIn, powerful.
Oh man,
is it all the things I forget I've written on LinkedIn? Yes.
I didn't know about this. This is something that sounds like it's going to have to be discussed at the happy hour after a conference, maybe at KubeCon or something. My interest is piqued. Well, thanks for being here, everyone in chat. Is the course live? Yes, Nick Hill. Conrad, hello from San Francisco. Eric's here, another Docker captain. Thank you. I got some tea delivered hot and fresh to match my swag that is for sale on this store below, all around you. There's swag everywhere. Martin's here on CQ from the High Fivers. We got a bunch of High Fivers here. Every time I do this, Michael's going to have his face covered. Sorry, Michael. We're just cramming people in here today.
I'll lift myself up here.
Let me see if I can. I'll move it down a little bit for you. How about that?
I'll just pretend I'm drowning and pulling myself out here.
Yeah. Or we can put it in the middle. Maybe I should do that. All right, let's get some soft topics because we have a jam-packed show. I mean, we usually do this for an hour, and thank you both for being here. Matt and I try to keep this to an hour so that we can get back to the other work, but this one is one of those where it's like we have the potential for a lot of questions and a lot of topics. There is so much going on at Docker. I'm having a hard time keeping up, and the name of this channel has Docker in it, and I can't keep up. So let's just jump right in. And thank you for being here. By the way, Justin's at WASM. Is it WASM.io? Is that the conference?
WASM.io, yeah. And WASM.io in Barcelona, yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about WASM today because there was a new technical preview that came out. We'll mention that later in the show in case you're into WebAssembly. We're going to talk about new product features like Docker Scout. And then we've got a new announcement from Docker about Telepresence that we're going to get into. Telepresence is a pretty slick piece of technology for Kubernetes. And first, I just want to cover what we've been talking about for the last week at Docker Hub, where there's been some changes to the org stuff there. And Justin, could you catch us up? I did a lot of talking last week, but you can probably summarize it a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. First of all, just say, we're really, really sorry about how we communicated. We really messed up, and we posted a blog saying we really messed up because we really messed up, and we, we caused a lot of noise about something that we really didn't. We were not trying to, we were not trying to do that, and we communicated a bunch of things wrong. First of all, we've had a huge number of people applying to the open source program, which is really great, like hundreds of them. We've been really putting them through really quickly. A lot of people have been helping to put those through. We've added several hundred new, I'm not sure how many. So it's very quick and easy process. Please apply if you're an open source project. We have heard from people that they don't think that it's the right program for them, and not necessarily suited, or some of our terms are not right, and we're really listening. We're thinking about what we can do for those people. So please tell us if you think that the program should work for you, but it's not. We'd really love that feedback. We're talking a lot about internally about what we should do about those projects. The open source community is really important to us. Also, to say we're not going to delete open source code. We're going to continue to let people update images. We're not letting people squat on your domains. That was all part of the miscommunication. And so we don't panic. Please get in touch. Please apply to the open source program if that's the right thing for you, or tell us if it's not. And we're really trying to make it all better, because we're really just sorry about this miscommunication, misunderstanding, and people being upset about it. And we really didn't mean to do that.
Yeah. From the outside, I can tell you that a lot of people don't get to have the access that the captains have, right? So a lot of times we actually get to sit in Slack, sometimes in Zoom, and get to watch you all work and have conversations. And it kind of, this whole thing is unfortunate, but it warms my heart, honestly, to watch the care and everyone internally knowing what they did wrong, trying to figure out the way to better communicate, fix what they did. Like, it's a real group of people. Sometimes we all see these companies and they announce, not the PRs, not the PR pull requests, but the press releases. We see like this cold exterior because we don't know the people internally. But having worked with you all for 10 years, many of us being close to 10 years at least involved with the company somehow, it's nice to see. It's nice to see like SJ from the top, the CEO of the company, sort of challenging everyone to do better. That's just, it's great stuff. So I want to throw that in because not a lot of outside people see that. And it's tough to hear promises or things from a company in a blog post and really, you can't read sincerity. And I'm just going to say that everything I've seen so far is sincere. So thank you so much.
I'll echo that as well too. It's been a lot of hard work, and in fact, actually, last week the entire marketing team, including Devrel, was at an offsite in Europe, and we're all making plans and things for the future and that kind of stuff. And when this incident occurred last week, of course, we changed all of our plans and we're focused on this. And so in many ways it was, for a fully remote company, we were all there together and we were able to work on it together. And we had some late nights and whatnot working on it together. But yeah, there was a lot of effort, a lot of sincerity going in this across the board. And so, yeah, we, just to echo what Justin was saying, we're listening to the feedback. We're trying really hard to do what's right, and hope everybody can see that as well too.
Very cool. Love. Like, we're going to get through this. I think the open source community will be, I think it's honestly like, we might all be better for it. Like, I hate to say that. I'm sure there's some people that are angry right now or frustrated, not angry, but frustrated with the situation. And I think we're going to come out of this with a better understanding of people's needs. And like you said, the Docker sponsored open source program, which I don't know how many people were in it before. Like, there was never really any announcement about how many were taking advantage of it and how many you had allowed in, basically to give them what I consider best of breed enterprise features, which I wrote in my newsletter last night. The DSOS program gives you the best of Docker Hub, as if you're paying a lot of money for nothing, as far as I understand. If if you're in a qualified open source product, you did open up and change those rules last year in the autumn of last year to loosen, I believe, the rules to allow people to get back in. Those of us in the community have been trying to share with people that if you got denied before, or if you applied and never heard anything back, reapply. I know Michael and the rest of the team is trying to get through those as fast as possible. Do you have any numbers that you can talk about, or are we talking about a dozen people, 100 people?
So people working on it. Actually, it's been crowdsourced across a lot of the company right now too. So we've got mechanisms in place to allow really anybody to help review those now. So, and as far as numbers of applicants, I don't think I can share specific numbers yet at this point, but I will say that we're receiving more applications per day now for the last 10 days than we were averaging per month previously. So like we're seeing a massive influx of applications come through, and it's been fun to see.
Good. Well, I think a lot of people, obviously, they want to get in because what they had before was fine for them, but they didn't realize they were actually missing out on some advanced analytics and other, the scanning stuff and a lot of things that weren't necessarily available. So if we had time, I'd love to actually dig into all the features of Docker-sponsored open source, but that's all on their website. So just go, you can see the blog post. It has links to the programs in the blog post, which I did a show and
Oh, you muted yourself, Brett.
You muted.
Why am I muted? So yeah, they did. I did last week a live stream and a podcast on it. And if you didn't hear or see any of those, just go to the blog and then maybe listen to my audio podcast. It's very short. It's still, as far as I know, all factual. As much as I know, it's from last Friday. And I will grab that link in a little bit and put it into the chat for people. But there's links in here to the DSOS program and all the other stuff that's going on in sort of the aftermath of this announcement. All right. Thank you so much for that.
You have a big challenge now to deal with, because I think even for people who are paying attention to the Docker homepage or the blog, finding out about the good news is easy. But there are probably a lot of people that just hear, somebody read Hacker News and then amplified the bad news last week that wasn't, and they heard that, and they might not be hearing as much of actually here's the real story, and so that's going to be a challenge, I think.
Yeah, Ansa is asking in chat, how does the Docker Hub change affect vendors that have a CE version that is fully open source and a paid version? Paid support offerings? My answer to them is still apply, right? Don't assume.
Yeah, don't assume. We can have the conversation. We have quite a lot of people who have that arrangement now, and we have we have ways of working with them. We have kind of policies around that, but just apply, and we'll sort out what the best path for you is.
Yeah, technically there are lots of the official images, which if you work your way up the stack of going from just a user account to org to DSOS to verified publisher to Docker official images, there's a lot of Docker official images that are open source with enterprise paid plans on top of them. Traffic, Nginx, MySQL, all these have usually some sort of company paying for it at an enterprise level. So I wouldn't assume. I would apply and let Docker figure it out for you. And I have also my own 6 free organizations, and I'm working with some teams of my clients that we're trying to figure out, should we apply? What do we want to do? And yeah, so I'm with you, people. Let's do it. Let's apply. Michael's team is ready.
Bring it on.
All right. I just learned this week. So another thing about Docker Captains is we get internal access. We get sort of previews of upcoming features and releases. And we recently had a conversation about Telepresence.
Boom.
And this is the Telepresence that we've all known about for years, right? The open source project for developing remotely on Kubernetes, right?
Yeah, it's been around for a long time. I think it was the first project in the CNCF sandbox, maybe years ago. It's been, if you knew it back then, it's been totally rewritten since the original version. I remember it was originally in Python. It was an early thing, and then they rewrote it in Go and made lots of improvements. It has been around for a long time, but it's also, if you haven't tried it recently, it's been improving all the time.
And so we've always been able to use it locally to talk to Kubernetes remotely. What does this mean for us with Docker?
So I can jump in. And in fact, actually, maybe, do you have the blog post as well? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can switch over to that.
Nope, not that one. This one.
There we go.
Yeah.
So actually, this blog post it's a guest post from Daniel Bryant, who's head of DevRel over at Ambassador Labs. And if you scroll down just below the image, that image there, there's kind of 3 bullet points there. So go back up just a little bit. Right, it's right after the image. Go up just a little bit more.
Oh, those things. Okay, sorry.
Yep, all good.
Yep.
And so there's a couple specific things here. So one, you can use Telepresence alongside your Docker toolchain. So we just make it easier to integrate and to leverage Telepresence. There's an updated desktop extension that's going to make it a little bit easier. The second one, you can now buy Telepresence directly from Docker and use your Docker ID and credentials to access it. So it's you don't have to have yet another set of credentials and everything too. So for companies that are, for example, already Docker customers or whatnot, they can add this capability to it and leverage their same credentials, et cetera. And then we're also helping provide support and services around it as well too. So this is, again, just the start of this journey here as well. But yeah, we're pretty excited about it. So it's just basically taking Telepresence and more deeply integrating it into the Docker desktop tool chain and feature set, making it easier to leverage and to use. And seeing that this blog post was written by the folks from Ambassador Labs, this is a close collaboration with them as well too. So we're excited to be working with Ambassador Labs and all the great things that they're doing as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've known them for a long time. We've always liked working with them. Daniel, one of the people in London who always see around and always like talking to. And we've had a very common view on, the developer experience for working with Kubernetes needs to be better, and that working together on Telepresence is a really good way to improve this and help people work with Kubernetes more effectively, help people get their applications into production more easily, understand what's going on, how they work, and have that mixed experience across your kind of dev kube cluster and your local desktop in a seamless way.
Yeah, I think that at some point in everyone's Docker journey, there's that question of, should I switch from Compose to Kubernetes for development? It's one of the most popular questions in my courses. I have the question often for my own clients, myself, and sure. I'm just so warm and fuzzy in Compose that I just want to. I don't really want to leave the world of Compose, especially now that we got it built into Docker. It's written in Go. It's fast. It's got new features, but the reality is like I can't always run everything locally. I don't have. I know teams where their databases are so large, their data sets are so big that they can't really do it on their local machine, and they need it elsewhere. Can one of you describe to me a little bit about that with Telepresence? I'm just a little dumb on Telepresence for that. Sorry, what were you going to say, Justin?
I mean, also just going to say, for a lot of people, their organization chooses how they're going to ship to production. Unlike you, they don't have the luxury of making that decision, and there's a lot of advantages for a large organization of using Kubernetes at scale, and but we all know that the developer experience for Kubernetes could be better, and Telepresence is just one of the ways we're exploring around how to make it better. We're exploring other things as well. This was something that we identified that was it would be good to work, with Ambassador on this project, because we think we could bring something that's easy to use now, but we're working on a whole lot of other solutions around making Kubernetes easier as well.
Yeah, that's been a question. Again, this is all going back to students and clients. They're still a little fuzzy about how much in Docker Desktop. Like they know they have Kubernetes there on Docker Desktop, but there's a lot of these questions like, how do I get this Kubernetes to talk to another Kubernetes? Can I run multi-node Kubernetes? Can I, what are all the things I can do in my local Docker Desktop? And at some point, there's limits. Like it just, a local Kubernetes can't solve all problems. Yeah. And Telepresence is, to me, like it's a part of a group of these tools that allow you to develop locally as if you're local, but part of the solution is remote, and you don't actually have to micromanage it like I see so many people doing with kube proxy commands in 5 different terminal windows, where they've got one for each thing they need, and sort of someone that has to set up AWS solutions for them so that they can just simply develop, and that's sort of the old school way of wait for the IT people to give you your AWS stuff. If I'm someone, like, what's the elevator pitch for Telepresence specifically? If I'm someone I got Kubernetes in production, I have Compose locally, and I'm thinking about switching to Kubernetes. Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah, so again, there's a couple of different reasons you might want to use Kubernetes for your development environment, and you even mentioned one earlier. Okay, if you're working with large data sets that just can't simply move, or you've got a microsystem or microservices application that's just got lots of integrations and lots of different things. Some of our systems are just getting so complicated that it's hard to even run it all locally as well too. So there's a lot of different reasons that you might want to actually use Kubernetes for development. But so what Telepresence lets you do is still have your local development tool chain and be able to develop locally, run your containers, run your applications locally, but basically connect your local application into your remote cluster. So for example, if I'm developing an API, I may want to be able to test my API changes without actually having to deploy them, go through CI/CD, all that works, or swap out whatever's in my development staging environment, et cetera. And so what Telepresence would allow me to do is to run that API on my local machine, but basically update some traffic config in my cluster so that when I'm making requests, rather than going to the API that's deployed in my cluster, it's actually forwarding that request back to my local machine. And so my development instance of the API on my local machine is the one that's actually handling the request. So it's kind of extending the Kubernetes network down to your local machine in a way, and allowing you to connect your local services as if it were deployed into the cluster, so that you can test and do development, et cetera. And there's a variety of different ways that they call them intercepts. And there's a variety of different ways that you can set up those intercepts, whether it's a global, like all requests are going to go there, or you have to have a special header. So there's a couple different ways to set that up. But again, it allows you to basically just focus on the service or the things that you're wanting to change, and then hook into the larger ecosystem of your application that may be deployed into your cluster.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's one of those things where I feel like I'm going to have to actually start using it to fully get the benefit, understand the benefits of just those intercept commands and how I can quickly jump into a cluster remotely, without a lot of the local stuff that we're like all the other separate tools that we're all used to. Well, this is cool, and my understanding that go ahead, Matt.
One of the things I'm kind of confused about is, I look at the Ambassador webpage and they talk about Telepresence business, but you also look at telepresence.io, and it's definitely an open source product. But then those 3 bullet points that you called out in the blog post, I only saw the buy, which implies that more the business level. Is there also a way of starting out with it on the pure open source route, or do I have to buy this to get access to this kind of functionality in the Docker side?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things going on. So it is. I'm trying to see if it was written in the blog post. I think it's just on the main page. So maybe if we pull that page back up, the telepresence for Docker page at the bottom of the page, there's a plans and pricing section. So right after this form here. Yep.
Okay.
So there's a basic plan. So for team members up to 3, yep, you can use it for free. And then greater than 3, then that's a sales conversation at this point.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're just a lone developer, you want to try this out, play around with it, or a team up to 3, by all means, play around with it and try it out.
And it's more than just I mean, I guess I've been able to use something like Cloudflare tunnels or whatever they call it, and to get access. There's more to it than just a tunnel to my Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah, right? No, absolutely, no, because as Michael was saying, you can. It's the piece about being able to route, some or all of the traffic from a service into, to be served out of your laptop, which is that's the bit that makes it easy. It's not just connecting. It's right. routing the traffic through to your service, so it hooks into the Kubernetes network routing and things as well. So it's not just tunneling. Cool. It's basically putting you kind of seamlessly into that cluster on your laptop.
Yeah, and Ambassador Labs has some pretty good docs and write-ups of kind of the technical behind the scenes as well too. So maybe we'll just have to have a whole show dedicated to telepresence and do demos and diving in deep and whatnot.
I'm waiting for Bret's course on it.
Right. I need a course first, and then I can teach a course. How about that? What is when it says a team of 3? Is that I'm trying to imagine what the collaboration is. Is that so that they can access the stuff I'm doing from their machine? Like, what is the team aspect to? Is it just a single cluster that 3 people can share, or?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways those intercepts can be configured and plugged in. So again, imagine I'm developing an API and you're doing the front end, for example. If you're wanting to test against my API, I can put an intercept in place so that API requests are coming to my machine so you can test out changes or whatnot. But one of the other options for intercepts allows me to just say, hey, requests that have a specified header go to my machine. Otherwise, they default to the API that's deployed in the cluster. And so there's a couple different options there, and that can be shared not just for my own settings, but I can put that intercept in place, hand you that header, and so again, requests going into that cluster, if it's got that header set, will land at my API. So it allows teams to collaborate, even if you're not the one necessarily running the service that's being intercepted.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes you want people to test your changes. Sometimes you've broken it so badly that you don't want people to test that. So there's those different setups are useful depending on how badly you've broken it and what stage of development you're in, really.
Nice. I don't think I have any more questions. I feel like I'm just going to have to try it again because I think like you said earlier, probably the last time I tried it was back when it first was announced. It sounds like it's quite a little bit of a different product now, or rewritten or something. And I tried Octeto back when in its early days, and I think Kelsey Hightower put out about a tiny little tool, a simple little command line tool for just tunneling a single service to a local machine only. And so there's a growing number of these solutions. Obviously, we got NCAT, other things that solve part of the problem of remote development. Does Telepresence help me deploy the cluster at all, or do I have to have that cluster going on my own? I guess you're saying that the Docker solution is that you're giving us clusters. Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure. What is the cluster? What's the deal with the cluster?
Yeah, so at this point, you still have to have a cluster up and running, and there's Helm charts to deploy and set up Telepresence and whatnot. So there's still a little bit of setup in order to actually fully utilize the capabilities. Again, you've got to have traffic managers and that kind of stuff in place. So there is some in-cluster setup that's required.
Okay. All right. So a Helm chart, a Telepresence Helm chart on any cluster that I can access somehow.
Yeah.
And then that lights up the features.
Yep.
And is that Helm deployment chart thingy, is that the plugin in Docker Desktop? The extension, sorry? What's the extension doing for us?
No, the extension's helping you do the connection from the user point of view. The Helm chart bit. We kind of, I mean, a lot of people, the end users don't have access to deploy the Helm charts in Kubernetes. It's,
right.
But they're someone else that probably owns that. It depends, on your organization and setup. And for a lot of people, we're assuming that there's someone else is going to have to set it up for you, but then you'll be able to access it easily.
Yep. And so, the extension is just going to make it easier to configure your intercepts and preview URLs and the various features that come along with it.
So is your piece helping me if I'm on my machine, I've got Docker Desktop running, I'm building out my container on my Docker Desktop, and I'm connecting to a cluster somewhere out there in the cloud? Is that what is helping me with that? Or is it also helping me with, I'm that same person and somebody else has Docker Desktop with Kubernetes running in it, and I want to connect to that? Is that part of the scenario?
No. Well, you might be able to connect. You might be able to do that, but that's not the scenario we're thinking of.
Okay.
We're thinking of a cluster in the cloud.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in many ways,
but we have been thinking about these things about connecting one Docker desktop to another and things like that. It's one of the things you can play around with the Tailscale desktop extension and things like that to share containers between laptops and things like that. There's some kind of interesting use cases there, and I think that it's definitely something that we're interested in. Like how do people, what kind of things do people need to help work with other people in that team to help build applications together. And if you've got ideas about that, we're really interested in this space. If you've got or problems, ideas, anything, just give us some feedback. We're really interested in talking.
And how did this come about? Somebody at Docker initiate this relationship, or was it the other way around? And how long did that take? How long has this product been, I guess, in development? If you could say.
It's been, we started talking, I think it was, it was late last year. We started seriously trying to work out what shape it should be. We got a lot of feedback from customers about the problems they were having with Kubernetes. We've been spending a lot of time, trying to understand what developers need to help use Kubernetes, and this was one of the kind of directions that we were led down. It was like, oh, this is a problem, and there's a solution out there that is interesting. And the Telepresence desktop extension has been around for quite a while. It's one of the most popular ones, so we got a bunch of signal from that people were using it already, and maybe so that was also kind of like, should we do some more work on making a closer integration here? We get a lot of information about from which extensions people are using to try to help us get more feedback about what kinds of features, and we get a lot of feedback from the extensions feedback button and form you can fill in on the extensions about what extensions do you want. We have a Slack channel that feeds in those, and we spend a lot of time talking about if those people want this, it's really important. So we really value that feedback. And Telepresence was one of the first extensions. Actually, I think it was the first extension we started working on, like a year before that, because again we'd identified that they were, developer focused company as well. Like we were, we know them well in the ecosystem, and so I think they were the first. One of I think they were the first company we started talking to about when we started building extensions, like going out to the community and saying, well, what kind of things we build. So it all, in that sense, it started even a year earlier than that.
And am I using, if I'm the developer building out my container on my Docker desktop, am I using to get it over to that cluster? Am I using kube control on my side, or am I just using Docker commands? Am I on the command line, or is it purely in this extension?
I mean, so intercepts can actually, you can do intercepts to really anything on the local machine. So for example, if I can have a container running on my local machine, you might even be able to just do it with straight up just any process that's on the host that's got an exposed port. But yeah, so I can run my applications on my local machine, whether I'm using Compose or I'm just doing a Docker run or launching Kubernetes. It doesn't really matter as long as there's a network connectivity path, an exposed port there, and then put the intercept in place. And so the extension helps set up those intercepts. Of course, that's going to be more focused towards the container exposed applications, but yeah, you can connect a variety of different things to the cluster.
Cool. I got to play with this.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there was a screenshot at all of the, let's see, extensions. Telepresence. Oh, there's another. No, I guess maybe that was their same graphic or similar graphic. Doesn't really. I was trying to imagine what. I don't have Docker Desktop running because live streaming. But I was hoping there would be like a screenshot of what it looks like in there, but I don't see it anywhere. Anyway, this is really cool.
You don't run your live stream from Docker Desktop.
I could.
Live streams,
I could. I mean, I have the world's. There are some captains out there. You know who you are. I see James on the chat. Welcome, James. That would probably attempt this and have the courage. I come from this. I mean, we all have M1s now, or a lot of us do, if we're lucky enough. And it's just like this supercomputer that seems to have no limits. And it wasn't that long ago that even with the minimal resources running without Docker or anything else running, but my thing, I mean, it sounded like a jet engine next to my monitor. So I was always, I would close down Apple Notes or whatever. Like anything that was running, got to close it because I needed those resources for live streaming. But it's amazing how in just the time we've been locked down, how that's gone from it barely mostly works to like it's not even a problem now. Like this live streaming is fine. It's fine. As long as I have gigabit connection, I'm fine. But this is, I guess, we just need to have another demo day on this on Telepresence and bring in some real workloads and talk about it, because I think that maybe people would it would help them to understand in my workflow how exactly is this going to solve my existing workflow problems, and like what complexity do I already have today that this would simplify with Docker Desktop. And I'm looking forward to that because. I always like to look smart and tell people, oh, you got all those microservices, all those machine learning databases and AI in the cloud. I got a solution for you.
Well, NCQ asks or says we use a lot of mock services for integration testing, but I see how this would help in some cases. Is that creating mock services? Is that one of the strategies if you didn't have something like Telepresence? Would that be?
I think that. Yeah. No, completely. A lot of people, I think we talked to a lot of people about this, and like some people have managed to make the mock thing work really well. Sometimes it's a lot of work to keep all the mocks up to date, and you have to kind of have a strategy. The problem happens, I think, usually when people kind of slip up and they don't make a mock for something, and then suddenly they've got to connect to their gigantic Postgres database in the cloud, and it's like, oh, now we don't have mocks for everything anymore. Now everyone has to use people kind of slip out of the in many ways great world of mocks, but mocks don't always, they don't always mock the things you want to test, and I think that, some it does depend a lot on what kind of application you have. and which bit of it you want to test. I mean, we have a lot of this issue with ourselves internally with testing Docker Hub. Like testing a tiny little copy of Docker Hub isn't the same as testing a really big copy of Docker Hub because it just behaves differently. And so we have a staging Docker Hub that has a lot of data in it, not as big as the real thing, but not a trivial amount, because some things you want to test just behave differently with more data. And you don't want to suddenly break something, make something too slow in production because you didn't realize how it performed with lots of data and things like that. So there are all kinds of reasons why, or you might be using a lot of Amazon specific features and you don't have good mocks for all of them because Amazon doesn't always produce timely mocks for every new service they produce, kind of things like that. So there's a lot of reasons why people end up in one situation or the other. And if you have great mocks for everything and you're happy and you can do everything locally, it is a really great situation to be in because it makes things are fast, things are easy. But an awful lot of people are just not in that situation in reality, or not in that situation for all the kinds of things they want to test. Sometimes it works for some things and not others as well.
I got another question that came to me. Is this going to require like a lot of crazy ports to open up between me and them? Sometimes I do something because I don't know, I'm crazy and I want to do something like when I'm sitting on that in that JetBlue seat and I'm using 30,000 feet up and I want to try to connect, and then JetBlue has all sorts of ports closed. I mean, I'm always in places where the network isn't perfect. Is this going to work well in that scenario?
I think so. Field trip is needed. We should test it on JetBlue. It's not part of our normal release testing. So I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But Michael, when are you going? I'm going on a plane on Saturday.
I think our Telepresence live stream demo, one of us needs to be in an airplane while we're doing this.
Yeah, perfect. That just help.
Yeah, good luck, Bret, trying to keep us all together on the stream then.
Yeah, that's.
I don't think it's crazy ports, says the person who's done some things with crazy ports recently, and it's like, you want me to publish all the ports to this container, all of them?
Yeah, I'm trying to look right now. I actually, that's a question I hadn't thought about beforehand, so I'm not sure on that either. But
yeah, okay, yeah.
Tim has a good question. And I'm assuming this answer is yes. Telepresence sounds cool for testing IoT devices locally. Are chips ARM and x86 supported? So I guess we're talking about it. This all works on an M1 or on an ARM device, right? Or
Yep.
ARM v8. I don't know ARM v7 or not, but the remote cluster could be anything. Like you could have a remote x86 and a local ARM. That's another scenario too, because I still work with teams that haven't optimized for local development.
Because it's not running the same binary, so you can run a local ARM thing. It's just a service as far as the remote cluster is concerned. So it doesn't care if it's an ARM service running on an x86 cluster. It makes no difference to it.
Yeah, it's just forwarding the network traffic onto you, so that doesn't matter architecture at that point.
All right.
Computers are quite cool, aren't they? What do you think?
I'm assuming we have, I don't see any more questions in chat, so let's move on to Scout, because this is one that's been out a minute. As I say a minute, it's been out, I don't know, a month or two since the announcement. Let's look at is there a date? I don't see. Oh, posted in February 27th. So Docker released not even a month. 4.17, that's the latest release still, as far as I remember. And there was a lot of stuff going on in 4.17, but then there was this little, oh, by the way, we got this whole thing, and that created a new product page for something called Docker Scout. And tell me about it.
Yeah, so and just to be clear, it's still an early release. We're still shipping features. It's like so we're in the learning, the learning stage at the moment. So there's lots of stuff. There's lots more features to come, um, and so only parts of it are available now. But we're just trying to get feedback on what is there and what else you want, and so yeah, absolutely. There's a lot still to come. There's a lot of work happening, and we was gradually shipping little bits of features before 417, but 417 was when we kind of gave it a name.
The thing that it's okay. So it started out with Docker Desktop. It's got, if you're using Docker Desktop, and you have all like the default settings set, it just shows up as an advanced image analysis of vulnerabilities of all your containers and it's on images, but it shows up in containers as well. I think like it really lights up a lot of stuff that's going on there. There's almost like a need for us to have a show to go to see every little thing it does, because it's deceptively complex. I'm trying to think of how to say that. There's a lot going on there that you might miss. Yep. Like recommendation engines, which are awesome.
Yeah, and there's a lot. As I said, there's a lot more to come, and I mean, maybe we should do a show where we can explain like some of the bits that are coming, because you can kind of sort of see some of that, but it's not all visible yet.
Yeah, in fact, while you're sitting here, I brought up one of my images. So I have a popular. So, funny story. I am not a Jekyll expert. Jekyll is the blog engine that's used on GitHub, and as a demo, I showed off how to make sort of a simple little Jekyll. I extended the default Jekyll image to provide more functionality. It's now gotten pretty popular, and people get upset when it breaks. I had to do some performance analysis, because it turns out there's a blessing, a great match of Jekyll version, Ruby version. I'm trying to remember their templating engine. Like you got to get all the right versions, and then it suddenly goes like 10x faster. So that all happened, and I had to put a big banner warning on the repo that says, this is not for production use. It's just a little utility thing that I use on my local machine. It's not meant to deploy to a cluster. But I'm using it here because it is Ruby, and Ruby's running on a Debian image, and so there's gonna be vulnerabilities. Like there's something in the tool chain that's definitely gonna have something, and there is like we definitely need a show to kind of go into everything I'm seeing here, from the different images that I'm seeing and how it identifies which layers have the vulnerabilities, and the fact that I can dive into each one of those, seeing the individual CVEs, clicking on the CVE to go somewhere else to read about it. There's a view recommended base image fixes. A lot of this is in the GUI, but it's also in Hub. So you get like this. I mean, I sound like I'm your marketing department, but from someone who uses vulnerabilities, images with vulnerabilities every day, right? I'm working with teams that have vulnerabilities in them every day, and they're always trying to figure out how, like Alpine isn't always the answer. How do I manage these CVEs, reduce them? What's the right decision here? It's even got commands for how you might update this in your local tooling. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, the interface seems very similar to what you see in Hub. I can play what if and say, what if I did that?
Well, what part of this is Scout versus other? I mean, I see this in this kind of view, or a lot of this view in my Docker desktop. I'm looking at it right now. But I'm a personal. So I don't think I have access to Scout.
You do. I mean, there's different parts of Scout, but we like a lot. The local image vulnerability information is available for free to everyone. but you can also, the paid programs are around, access to vulnerability data on your images in registries. We support Docker Hub and also Artifactory at the moment, and we're going to add others. So you can link up your registries and see and get information about what's there, and basically, kind of behind the scenes of the product, we're basically making a big database of all the information, what's in the images. That's also why it's really fast a lot of the time. Sometimes it just is instantaneous because we've already done the work. We already know what's in that image. And then, and some of the features that we're adding, I think, it's a database of the composition of the images, and then we have a database of CVEs, and we get instantaneous notifications when there's a new vulnerability. We can give you, we can open. We have features that we've got in testing, that we've been working on for a while, like things like opening a pull request when there's a new vulnerability, or giving you Slack messages, then you know what's going on, correlating what you've got in production with which is the images that are important to update and things like that. So there's lots of work that's, based on the data model that we're building behind the scenes. It's not all, so there's kind of what's in my local images is, really, what we think that everyone just needs out of the box in order to, just understand their images. But having a data model of all the images in your organization is incredibly powerful, and that's what's the really advanced technology behind it. But we're definitely giving people access to this information, and there's lots more of it's going to be public as well. We'll be publishing the official image vulnerabilities and some of the other ones as well shortly, I think, if they're not out already.
Echo too. I mean, that's one of the big differences with this product is that it's not a point in time scan. It's and it's even down at the bottom of the Docker Scout page. That's really why we've been investing so much into SBOMs lately, because once you've got this SBOM, now you know all the versions of all the things that are installed there. And so as new CVEs or new issues come out or whatnot, you've already got this document there that already outlines here's what's in that image. And just as Justin was talking about, once you've got this data set of here are all the SBOMs and everything that's in all the images, as new things come out, we can make those recommendations really easily. We can know what images are affected by particular CVEs or particular issues really quickly because of these capabilities. So again, just the start here, but pretty excited. And honestly, one of the things I'm actually pretty excited about, so Bret, right where you are, that image hierarchy, every once in a while, I think it's kind of cool to say, hey, I'm pulling the node image. Oh, wait, I see that this is built on Debian, or like to actually see that hierarchy in action here. I think that's a pretty cool thing, just to also see how even a lot of the official images are based off of other official images. And I don't know, just that visibility to me is also a neat thing to see.
Yeah. It's like, to me, it's like the image version of GitHub blame. Yeah. It's like whose fault is this? Is this mine? Did I not do apt-get update properly, or whatever? So is certainly a lot to dig into here. It does. I think understanding CVEs, understanding how container images are built, it's all pretty. Like this is not day one Docker stuff, people. This is going to take, like, I think, for a large team. I worked with a company that had hundreds of developers. This involves a lot of people to solve these problems. Traditionally, it's a developer. There's usually got to be a DevOps person or someone who's a little bit more aware of Linux and the lower layers of images, because usually the developers tend to just focus on their app and they know there's dependencies there, but they don't really know how they get there, or that there's also OS dependencies. And then you got your security team who has their own requirements for how many, which and how many vulnerabilities they're going to allow into production. And the challenge is that no one's really able to make decisions without the group. I see, like, a lot of times a developer, sure, if they can get rid of a CVE vulnerability in their app, great. But we always talk about shift left security, and we have things like Sneak showing up in your VS Code editor that will warn you of packages that are outdated in your app, and that's great, but that's not, like, that's not all the problem, right? We've got these other things, the Debian dependencies, the from image dependencies that you can't maybe solve in your Ruby gems or your package JSON file.
Absolutely, and I think with some of the work we're doing, we're linking these different layers to the GitHub repos where they're where those images come from, and then we can open pull requests against the right repo so that the right people can fix it and things like that. So that a lot of that stuff is being tested and being built, and it's really, when that works, it makes it totally different. So like the team that manages your base images gets the pull request to do the fix, and then you can concentrate just on the pieces you put in your application afterwards. And it's it's understanding where the different layers come from and who built them makes it really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a big fan of Dependabot for application and like GitHub Action, automatic PRs for security updates, and that's to me like part of my default workflow in GitHub. I kind of tend to take a day a week and just look at all those emails, all the emails you get from pull requests, especially anything Node.js. Oh my goodness. I've got so many updates. I have one repo that has like 30 different Node.js demos, and it gets one every day, at least once a day. And I'm looking forward to a future where we can also see this for Docker files. Like not necessarily, it doesn't have to be Dependabot, but like something where, hey, I've got a PR to fix not the application level, but the infrastructure level stuff in your Docker file. Yeah. This is what you should do. And of course that future is going to involve GPT at some point. Probably it's like I'm going to have a conversation with a bot about my vulnerabilities in my image. I don't know. Yeah. It's on my mind. GitHub, whatever. Copilot X is out, and like every day we get a new GPT announcement. I want to mention real quick, James has Docker Captain James Spurren has a video on. He's pumping out the videos lately, and I think he's still in chat, hopefully. But go check out his channel. It's it's youtube.com/diveinto. I put the link to his video in chat. He has a whole video explaining some of this stuff that's going on in Scout too. So, thank you, James.
And I was looking through the available extensions just randomly in Docker, and I saw that he's got a Docker extension which looked pretty cool as well. So
yep.
Fun things.
Yeah, the Ansible one. Is that the Ansible course one? I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a new change too, right? Is that anyone can now make an extension and put it into the marketplace? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm getting daily little blue dots saying there's a new extension. There's a new extension. So I mean the floodgates are open, people. And I think we said this many times before on this show in the last year, but on the extensions was kind of like to me it was the feature of 2022. Like it was you released it in 2022. It was it showed up, and I remember those early days before it was released. The captains were asked, what do you think about this extension idea? What would you make? And I don't think we all really understood at first what was possible, because we didn't have a lot of great feedback for Docker, because it was maybe a few little things. Like image scanning was obvious, but I would have never said, I want to build an OpenShift cluster in Docker with a couple of clicks and do that without leaving Docker and downloading extra tooling. Or I want telepresence integrated into my Docker so that I can just click a couple buttons and I'm connected to a cluster. Boom! I don't have to go brew something, and then there's just not a lot of these tools have their own GUIs. So the very fact that they're getting their first GUI out of an integration with Docker, I would have never predicted that. So
yeah, and it's been pretty favorite extensions. Sorry, Matt. It's been neat to see the number of extension creators that have also been like, by creating an extension, now they're tapping into the vast network of and the millions of people that are using Docker Desktop. So it's making it a lot easier to get it in front of people as well. And so it's been neat to see the number of companies and products and other tools and whatnot just start to flourish and actually do a lot more because of this extension platform. So it's been pretty neat to watch.
Do you two have any favorite extensions?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Well, just Telepresence day today, so it's but that's been pretty
like picking
cool.
Your favorite
a lot of people are using that.
Yeah. Let's see. What would my favorite extension be? That's a good question. I mean, I've been playing with so the ones I've been testing with just lately have been obviously Telepresence. I've been using the Tailscale one a little bit too, and kind of testing that out. The Mutagen one, I've been playing with that one a little bit as well too, just to do a little bit of performance testing and whatnot. Just to, I do a lot of React development and just other Node stuff, and so any time I can do performance optimization improvements, that's always a big plus for me as well. So. And then I think James would be sad if I didn't mention the Flappy Dock extension I made. I need to get that in the community marketplace there as well too. So James, hold me to that. I'll get it in the marketplace for you. So.
That's the key saying. I really want to build that Docker's Forum Docker extension.
Do it.
It might actually be there, and that's called Portainer, which is I think one of the most popular extensions. Portainer is killing it in terms of downloads. People are, I mean, it's already so easy to install Portainer, but you can now just install it with a couple of clicks instead of a command line, a Docker run command. So that's another one out there that I definitely think. I mean, clearly by the download rate, I think it's one of the favorites of people. Thank you, by the way. We got a super sticker. So. Set up Heap, thank you for. I think that you've had a couple of those super stickers. Thank you so much lately for supporting the channel. Sadly, the Telepresence question, rewind. Do a rewind. We just did that for like 20 minutes. We talked about Telepresence. So if you showed up late, just rewind the show or watch it later, and hopefully those will answer all your questions about Telepresence. I think so. The last thing we should talk about real quick, I know we're running a little long, if you have a few more minutes, is we just want to mention, like, Justin is at the WASM conference, and this just came out yesterday, announcing the next technical preview.
Yeah, so article by Georgie, who wrote the locale, also here just did a talk at WASM.io. Catch up with the WASM.io talks. It's a really fun conference, really nice little venue, nice little conference in Barcelona. So yeah, when we originally did our WASM work, we worked with WASM Edge. They came along, they wanted to work with us, and a lot of people thought, well, Docker and WASM Edge is like, this is what it's all about. But actually, it was not really an exclusive thing. And there's a lot of experimentation in WASM at the moment. Lots of people are doing interesting things. So one of the things we're going to do was really support more runtimes, because you might think, oh, should I care what WASM runtime I'm running? Because it's just a WASM runtime, it runs WASM. But actually, right now, they've got different APIs because there's a lot of things that haven't yet been standardized, particularly around networking. And so they all have slightly different ecosystems right now. So having a choice lets you actually run all the WASM applications that there are. So Spin, for example, which is from Fermion, is hence the reference to Spin. That has a different kind of networking model because it's not been standardized yet, and so and it also has a whole bunch of other useful things in its toolkit. So it's great to be able to run the Spin applications locally as Docker Desktop as well, and so on. So it's really an extension of what we were doing before, but just really opening it up to the whole universe of experimentation. Well, not quite all of it. There's more runtimes that we still might have to store.
I was gonna say, so yeah, this isn't run C. Then this isn't like 1 point release a year level of these are young projects, rapid innovation. Not everybody's doing the same thing. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to work out, what are the features of WASM that are important, what's going to be interesting about it, what's going to, what's going to lead developers to, make it less of a niche thing. So really, really working on working with the whole ecosystem to try and explore these areas. There's a lot,
Yeah.
There's a lot going on with WASM, lots of different ideas, lots of different experiments, lots of different types of applications that people are using WASM for. So it's quite exciting.
Yep.
Is there anyone in chat that's using WebAssembly in any capacity today? I'm just curious if we have a few people that have dabbled or are using it. I should mention, by the way, we're going to probably have a future show with Nigel Poulton back on. If you remember, I did a video with him. Essentially, I interviewed him on an offline video for a Docker All Hands in December. And that was back when we had Technical Preview 1. And we had all come back from KubeCon, where there was not a ton of WASM sessions, but like there was more than zero. And there was a lot of talk. Docker's booth had the WASM thing on it at the booth. So there was definitely conversations being had everywhere around what is this all going to mean? What is this all going to turn into? Can we predict the future of what I was calling at the time cloud native WASM, cloud native WebAssembly or cloud native WASM? It was, I don't remember anyone ever really saying that word, but we were all saying like WASM on the server. And I was feeling like, okay, this is going to all turn into eventually, if I had to predict, like I'm going to have a Kubernetes cluster. I can run today, I believe, per node in Kubernetes, you can only run one architecture type per node, if I can remember correctly. Like I don't think it's something built into Kubernetes, tell me if I'm wrong, to allow multiple architectures per node, because it's just never really been a thing. But it seems like this is now something that we're going to be able to do.
Well, I mean, WASM's not an architecture in that sense at all, because it's just swapping out the runtime, which you can do on a per pod basis. So you actually do have the flexibility to mix WASM pods and non-WASM pods, because it's not, although it's kind of like an architecture, it's also not really an architecture.
I know,
so
it's hard to describe
kind of
because
in that way.
Yeah, because you are writing in the dash platform, essentially. You are writing a different OS and architecture statement. So it's not an architecture, but it's perceived in the configuration, I guess is maybe what I'm saying, as an architecture choice. I just remember that the Azure Kubernetes features, when they released their preview of us being able to run WASM inside of Kubernetes clusters in Azure, that you had to have a dedicated node pool for those workloads, and I was digging into it a little bit.
I mean, I think I'm actually not sure. I think that may well be the case just from a manageability point of view. I mean, like it doesn't necessarily have to be like that, but it's kind of easier to configure things to run like that sometimes as well. So there's a lot of, it's still all quite early stage, but
sure.
I was talking to Ralph at Azure yesterday, and we would, people are trying it out, running applications in Azure on it. So it's again, they would love feedback on that and whether it's working for you. And this preview 2 means you can run the same application locally as you do on the Azure, because we support the same runtime now. So you can test it locally and deploy it to Kubernetes Azure now as well, which is great.
Anseki is asking, will this WASM support be part of Docker Engine, or will this stay a Docker desktop thing?
You can use it in Docker Engine too. Yeah, it's all, you just have to, we're not shipping it with the Docker Engine releases yet because it's really early, but you can just run it. You can install it yourself. Like there's install instructions. It's like, we kind of assume that if you use Docker Engine, you know how to put the bits together a little bit, so you can read a command line instruction. Whereas your Docker desktop, we like to, make it. But it's a little, it's still a bit of complexity in the config, which is, still, it's using the containerd backend and things. So it's not kind of trivial, but it's not that complicated. So
that's the same for other containerd. Are they plugins, extensions, runtimes? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Shims, yeah. Because there's other ones, right, that containerd can use, and you have to manually configure containerd and install the binaries for that shim. So this is just more of the same, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was actually just looking up. I was wondering if there's a list somewhere of containerd shims, all of the possible runtimes for containerd, because over the years, a lot of people have had ideas for things that they could do with running in containerd. I'm sure it's somewhere on the containerd site, but I'm not.
Well, I think some of them are, but some of them, there's all sorts of things that, I think that, I think like AWS, like Fargate uses containerd shims, under the hood, but they don't like tell you about it. It's like certainly, I'm fairly sure they built it with containerd. So there's lots of places that people are using them. There's a bunch of them in the containerd GitHub org. The WASI stuff's there. And,
that's right. Yeah, because some of them get sort of pulled into the containerd project, right? Like, it's sort of an acceptance process that I. Yeah, like the start. There's runtimes and there's other things. There's like the Stargazer. This is. I'm just gonna pull it up. We're on a little bit of a tangent,
but
the
snapshotters, yeah.
Yeah, so we've. Yeah. I know there was a conversation recently about snapshotters, which.
But yeah, RunWASI is that's the one that we've been contributing to and working on. So that's what we're using.
There's a lot of repos.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Anyway, that is server level operations nerd stuff. I feel like for sure that most people don't ever realize what containerd can do underneath. But yeah, it's cool that Docker has support for these other runtime shims. Trying to think if there's been any other ones that it could do in containerd before this. With Docker, I think the Docker would support it.
Yeah, that's why we're moving. We've been planning this for a while, and it's still a work in progress doing the full migration to fully use containerd and Docker. Right. It's always been the plan. It was always part of the plan since the original thing, but it's like a, difficult transition. We shipped, half of it, the runtime piece, but not the full runtime piece, but the other pieces, and there's still a bunch of work to do there, but it's getting there. We've got it. You can turn it on a desktop, and it mostly works now. Like, we fixed a lot of the little bugs and edge cases, but that's partly why we're doing it, because there's a few APIs that are different. Had to be, we had to work out the compatibility. Little, just weird little things of just trying to work, because people use Docker in so many different ways. So we're still hoping to learn that pretty soon, and switch over to use containerd fully as the default, which will just mean it'll be easier to use the WASM shims and things like that, and the rest of those things as you want. So yeah, soon.
Yeah, soon. That's my favorite word on this show. Soon. I will have that soon. But
you can test it now.
You can test it now.
Yeah, because it mostly worked.
What we're talking about is in Docker Desktop, there is a checkbox, and you can choose to use more of containerd. You're already using containerd today, in case you didn't know, people. You've been using it for a very long time, at least 5-6 years. It's basically just a piece of Docker that got pulled out, but you're replacing the engines in the air here. Like you're flying the ship. You don't want to break anyone's functionality, but you want to swap the engines out to give us a better path forward for more options and features in the future. I feel like, because there's already new features we're seeing, because if you enable the containerd in Docker Desktop for image storage, you then get additional benefits that, and I can only imagine you all are working on more stuff. So this is one of those things where. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And we're also transitioning a bunch of other, like the Docker v23 that came out recently, like now defaults to BuildKit. We shipped over to defaulting in BuildKit in desktop quite a while back, but we're switching over for everyone. And again, that's part of gradually phasing out the non-BuildKit old Docker build that we used to have. I've still got to do some work on Windows to transition it for Windows containers, but mostly it's working. A lot of people have been using BuildKit for years. It's got all these great features, but it's like it still wasn't the default on Linux because we know that people are quite conservative and like don't want to break things. So we've been, but it's been really, it's got so many features that so many people are using it anyway. Because it's, you want to do all sorts of multi-arch builds, you want to do fast builds, all the rest of it. The BuildKit features are great, and most of the desktop people don't probably realize we didn't switch over on the Linux. Maybe the Linux people don't realize how great BuildKit is because they maybe didn't turn it on themselves. So we switched that over, and it's all part of keeping everything upgraded. But as you say, in midair.
Yeah, it's improving it. I'm teaching a course this week on using Docker's GitHub Actions and enabling BuildKit and QEMU and all that fancy stuff. So it's something that people are still learning, about the advancements in Docker since they first learned it all of those years ago. By the way, happy birthday, Docker. I don't have. I'll just hit all the buttons for Docker. We didn't mention that on the show, but it is the 10th. I just put out a newsletter last night realizing that it was my 10th newsletter and 10th birthday of Docker this month. And technically, I think it was last week, but nobody really cares about the day. We just celebrate the month.
Yeah, we're having a little press event right now. I think it is on.
Oh, really?
Well. Things like there's but yeah, it's funny how 10 years is a long time in software years, but it's amazing what's happened in those 10 years because of Docker.
Yeah. When you think about more than 10% of your life has been focused around one tool, a technology tool, it does seem like a long time, but it's a testament to sort of like we have this show today 10 years later. We can't even fit everything in. People are asking me about V23 features. I'm like, it's going to have to be a different show. Like you want demos on Telepresence? It's going to have to be a different show.
Even just to say too, while we were talking, there was another blog post that just went live of a partnership with a company or a group called Hugging Face of AI machine learning. A partnership there as well too. So that's where the whole nother conversation as well too. So there's just a lot going on for sure.
Just the fact that it's called Hugging Face means I have to try it. I didn't know about this company, but the Hugging Face Hub. I'm not an ML person per se, but yeah,
they're the friendly Hugging Face of the. They're great people. It's great to be working with them.
Yeah. So, all right. So we were basically saying 4 more shows this year to catch up with what you've already done. And then by then there'll be more stuff.
More things to talk about. Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for both of you for being here. This has been a great show. And thanks in particular, Justin, for being here since you're in Barcelona at a conference. And you were able to, and your Wi-Fi has been great. The hotel Wi-Fi is working solid. But we both appreciate you being here. Matt, thanks again, of course, for being co-host. We will, you can find out all the information on all the stuff they talked about. Links below in the description. Links are in chat. Links are everywhere. Of course, if you want to join the community, all the links above, that's why they stay there forever, because you can join our Discord server, which is the DevOps Fan. We've got, I think, 13,000 DevOps professionals in there now. I can't even keep up with everything that's going on. It's just a lot. But if you want to join the container native or cloud native DevOps community, that's where we're all hanging out. And be here next week for a live show. We've got guests coming up. We've got Corey Quinn coming on the show to talk about 17 ways to run containers in AWS. We've got we are going to have we've got a whole bunch of stuff planned this year, including some of the creators of Kubernetes coming on the show to talk about Kubernetes, the future of Kubernetes, which I'm excited about. You just stick with us. We'll be here live every Thursday. So thank you so much, gentlemen. I will see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bret.
Right.